Let us now discuss the user interface of an Android application. As you can see from this application that we created before, what we are able to see is the user interface. We have a screen that has a text, hello world. All this is defined in our layout files. So we can go back to Android Studio here and check under the layout, we have activity main.xml. When I click on it, it opens and displays XML code. The XML code has a layout that is defined, and within that layout, we have a view, that is the text view. The text view has a text hello world, which we are able to see when the application lands. So we are going to learn how we can be able to add multiple views in our layout, the common types of layout, that is constraint layout, relative layout, linear layout, how we can make our app to be responsive on different devices with different screen sizes, how we can be able to arrange our views within the layout, and we are going also to create sample application that will help us to master the layout of an Android Studio. Hi, in this section, I am going to teach you how to develop Android application user interface. What do I mean when I talk about user interface? Any application that you want to develop has a user interface. This is basically what the user sees and interacts with. For example, in our Hello World application, we can see we have a Hello World text. This is a view within our application. It's the user interface. It's what we can be able to see and interact with. And within the user interface, we have different items. For example, we have layouts, we have views, we have view groups. Just to give a brief introductions, for example, a layout. What is a layout? This is a layout. And a layout basically defines the visual structure for an Android user interface and can be created using a simple XML file like this one, or can be invoked during runtime. We are going to see how we can be able to add elements within our layout file. For example, I can be able to say I want to add a button. So I can say this button, I want it to match parent, lab content, and then I can give it a text of a button. So you can see we have been able to add a button by just defining some XML file code. And then we have views. A view is considered as a basic building block for a proper user interface. So what we are seeing here is a view, what I'm able to see. This is a view, that's why it's called text view. And then we have this one, constraint layout. It's a container that holds my views. So if I go back here, it's an invisible container. You can't be able to see the constraint layout, but it holds the hello world view. So this, we are going to discuss it into details as we continue with these episodes of this section. A layout basically defines the visual structure of an Android application. A layout can be defined using XML file or defined to learn during learn time, like programmatically to learn during learn time. For example, how do we create a new layout file? All you need to do is to go to your layout. It's located under layers, and then we have a layout folder here. Click on it and then select new, and we have layout resource file. You can select the root element. By default, nowadays we have constraint layout, and the directory name is going to be placed at the layout. Then you give it a name. For example, you can say this is a test layout, and then you click OK. So every time that you create a new layout, it's placed at the layouts and then we have it as test layout. It's here. And then by default, it comes with a view group container that will hold the views that are going to be added onto it. So creating a layout is that easy. If you're creating an activity, each activity comes with its layout, and that is why it's shown during runtime. For example, we have this one, main activity, and the layout that belongs to main activity is activity main. So by default, anything that is within this layout is going to be shown when we call our main activity. And that's where we can be able to see this hello world. If we try and change it to test layout, we have that is test layout. We expect not to see anything. Let's see. There we are. So let's discuss how can we be able to add views to our layout. An XML is used to define views within our layout. For example, this is XML. So remember, XML is a non code. So you use it to define the structure of the user interface. Mostly it's used to declare the views or to add views. In Android Studio, you can be able to use XML editor, this one, to write your XML or to define your views. Or you can just go to design and use a drag and drop. For example, if I want to add this text view, I can easily drag it and drop it because this is a layout editor. Or I can, let's delete this one. I can go to split and define my text view here, lab content, and I can be able to give it text, and then this is a test. And then you can also even be able to align it, that constrain it, that is, you can see I want it to begin to start from the parent where the parent starts, and I want it to end where the end of parent is. So it will be like it's starting from this side and ending this side. So it's basically positioned at the center. And even I can say I want it to be at the top, not in the bottom. And if I run this application again, we are going to be able to see our new text view. It's here, declared using XML file. So you can add different views. You can declare them using the XML. So for example, you can have something to do with image view. You can lab content, or you can just say source. Remember, most of the time when it comes to image, we usually use the local images stored within the drawable, or we can fetch online. So we can position this image and say I want it to appear at the bottom of parent, and I want it to start where the parent starts, and I want it to end where the parents end. So if I run this application again, we can be able to see our image view here declared using XML file. Let us now discuss the different types of layout. So we have this activity main layout, and when we look at the structure of the XML, we have constraint layout, and within it we have a text view. So we have constraint layout, we can define this one to be a relative layout. We can remove that and have relative layout, and we can also have linear layout. So we are going to discuss those common types of layout, that is constraint layout, relative layout, and linear layout. Each layout affects the views defined within it. For example, if we have constraint layout, you can see this text view get aligned at the center of this layout. If we change this one and do it as a relative layout, this text view appears at the top left corner. If we change this one to a linear layout, the same happens to the top left corner. So we're also going to discuss why these behaviors, because some layout offers the flexibilities of doing or defining our user interface in this way, and why we need to use some layout to do this and not others. So let's begin by working with the type 1 that we are going to call constraint layout. So constraint layout offers flexibility. You can be able to define your views and constrain them to the parent. For example, it's very responsive when it comes to user interface. And we can see here, each view is constrained to another view or to the parent. We have this text view. It's constrained at the bottom of parent. So it's bottom here, left, it's left, and then we have light, and then to the top. And that's why it's positioned at the center. If we want this button to be at the top, what we need to do is to remove this button. So our button will be positioned at top. And we can try this out by running our application. There we are, it's at the top. If we want it to be at the light corner, we just need to remove this. And if we run our application again, it's going to be positioned there. There it is. So let me position it to the center again. If we want to add another view and we want it to be at the center, that is between the top and this text view of hello world, what we need to do is have another text view here, lab content, and I want to tell it to start of parent, and then end of parent, and I want it to be top of parent. So already, let's give it text. We can say this is text. We can see it's at the top, but we want it to be between top and this hello world. So what we need to do is tell it, go to the top, or I want it to be at the top of no, it's at the bottom. Remember, the bottom of it should be top of this text view. So it's supposed to be text view 2. So its bottom should be at the top of this. Its top should be at this. So let's learn. There we have our text view displayed at between top and this text view here. Let us now try to add another view, and I'm going to add this view here, that is button, and I'm going to say lab content, and I want this button to be displayed between hello world and bottom. So what I'm going to say is I want it to start, that is start of parent, and I want it to end of parent. And then first I want its bottom to be at the parent, and then I want its top to be the bottom of our text view 2, this one. And then we can give it even a text here to say it's button bottom. We can learn this one. And we can see our button is properly aligned between the hello world and the bottom of our parent. So basically, when you're working with constraint layout, all you need to understand is you constrain a view with another view or parent. So if you want to constrain this view to another view, you need to define the ID and then position it. For example, we can have ID here, and we can say this is text view 3. Then we want to add a view here between top and this one. So what I need to do is I can do a button, then lab content, and then I want it to start, that is start of parent, and I want it to end of parent. Now I want it to be top of parent, but I want it to be at the bottom top of this. So I can give this one text view, and remember we named it 3, text view 3. Then we can even give it a text, that is button top, and we can learn this one again. We have our button here. So working with constraint layout, it's very easy. It allows us to have layouts that are responsive on small devices and even big devices. So let's clear all these and now work with linear layout. Let's say this is a linear layout. So in a linear layout, it offers either horizontal or vertical alignment. So you can decide you want your views to be horizontally aligned or vertically aligned. So when we're dealing with linear layout, we don't constrain it, so we can remove those ones. But what we do at the linear layout level, we define the orientation. I'll begin with vertical orientation. And then for this one, if I want it to be at the center, that is horizontally center, I'll need to have gravity, layout gravity, center horizontally. If I want to add a view below it, I just need to define text view, lab content, and then I can give it a text, that is second text. And then to align it center, I'll just say layout gravity center. So I can add multiple views that are going to be aligned below each other. If I change this one and say it's horizontal, they are going to be aligned horizontally to each other. It has benefit, especially when you want your views to be below each other or side by side. Instead of using constraint, which you have to define constraint between your views, you can use relative layout. Finally, let us look at relative layout. So I'll just undo all these and return my application to the initial stage it was. So now I'm going to remove the constraint layout and have my relative layout. Now for the relative layout, we also don't need to constrain. And most of the time when I'm using relative layout, it's because I want to arrange my layout below another, my view below another view. For example, if I want to center this one, that is horizontally, I can say center horizontally true. If I want to center this one, that is horizontally and vertically, I can just say center in parent true. It's very simple. If I want another layout to be below this one or another view, so I'll have text view, lab content, and then what I'm going to do, can just start by saying a text, that is second view, and then I can just say that I want this one to be below text view 2. Okay, it should be below text view 2, and then I want it to be centered horizontally. That is true. So I can position it here. So I can be able to align horizontally, vertically. If I want to do it side by side, I can say align end, and then can give ID that is text view 2. So it's going to align both, they will have the same end. So I can just say anything that I want to align it to, and then it's going to align to. So basically, those are the main or the common types of layout that are used: constraint layout, relative layout, and linear layout. Each has its own benefit and the reason why we use it at some point or not. But now what you are going to do is to create a simple application that utilizes, because you can be able to use all of them together. Now we are going to develop a simple login application that will help us to understand how to use or combine all these types of layout, views, and XML. So to get started, I'm going to remove this text view. I will leave my constraint layout as the parent layout, and then inside it I'm going to have a linear layout. I'm going to merge parent, and this one I'm going to lap content. Remember what we said about linear layout. You need to define whether its orientation is vertical or horizontal. In this case, we are going to have vertical. Then I'm going to define the constraint because it's a layout but in another layout. So I'll give it start, and then it will be start of parent. I'm going to give it end, and this one will be end of parent. And also I'm going to give it top of parent, and I'm going to give it bottom of parent. Bottom of parent. That will give me a centered linear layout. So inside it, what we are going to define or have is a view called text view, which I'm going to lap content and lap content. Then inside it, I'll have a text. This text will be user login. Now I can be able to enlarge this text by saying I want its size to be 16 sp, and I want it to be type. You can have text type or input type, and I want it to be, it's a text. Then we can define style. We can give it bold. You can also give it color. For this case, you can use Android color black. That is it, color, and then we can do black. We want it to be centered, so I'm going to have layout gravity center horizontally. Below it, we need an input text, so I'm going to have input edit. So this one is called text input edit text. Then I'm going to merge parent. I'm going to lap content, and then I'm going to have something called hint, and then it will be input username, or you can just say username. Then we can give it something like ID, that is edit text username. Below it, I'm going to have another text input, edit text, and I'm going to match parent. I'm going to lab content, and this one I'm going to say hint is password, and then below this one I'm going to have a button. I'm going to say match parent lab content, and then I'm going to give it that is login. So we have basically built a login application, but now we want it to look much better. So we can learn and see first what we get. So there we are. We have our text, we have username, of password, and we have this button. So if we don't want these buttons to be touching the edge, what we need to do is to come to our palette, that is linear layout, and give it a margin start. We can give it 30, and then we can give it a margin end of 30. Now this text view, we want it to have a separation between this text and this input. So what we can do, we can give this one a top margin of 50. And then we can also give this one a top margin, that is the distance between them, 50. And finally, for this button, we can give it a top margin of 50. So if we run our application again, so there we are, it's looking much better. So we can reduce this distance between username and password by reducing this one. We can say let that one be 30. If we learn this one again, there we are, we have give us the username, give us the password, and then you click register. We click the login button. So basically, this is how you can be able to combine this layout. This we used constraint layout and linear layout. You might also want to use relative layout. You can play with this attribute to make this login application even much better. But basically, this is all that we need to learn in this module of layout and the user interface.